Hey everybody, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you about The Legend of Zelda, Skyward Sword for the Nintendo Wii. Now before I start this, I'm going to tell you guys up front, first of all, there is a written review. You can check that out at www.thegravelpit.net, or just check the link in the description, like you can for all of my reviews. So if you want to see the written one, it's there. And the review I did before was for Twilight Princess, which I think you might want to either know about the game or check out that review first, since I think this is a pretty good comparison piece, being that they're both on the same system and everything. So I'm bound to draw comparisons. I also want to apologize that I don't have any gameplay footage. As I said in the other video, my Wii has been broken, so I never actually, got to replay through it again for this month or anything. And last time I played it was like a year or two ago, so know that I'm basing my experiences off of playing it then. If I miss some details, if I'm foggy on stuff, I'm really sorry. That's just going to be why, and that's why you're seeing just a still image on the screen instead of the gameplay. So Skyward Sword is another Zelda game that does a lot of Zelda things. Boy, doesn't that sound familiar by now. Zelda games doing Zelda things. It's kind of a thing a series would do, isn't it? You're going around to different temples and you're trying to, beat the bosses. You're getting items to help you get to new places, solve more puzzles, and maybe even do some mini games here and there. There's some kind of side quest stuff, some collection things. And ultimately you end up getting all the things, beating the temples, and finding the final thing to save the day. That's how a Zelda game goes. You guys understand this. The things that make Skyward Sword a little different are that it's in the sky, for one. Basically, you start in a hub world that's up in the clouds. And you fly on these birds that are called loft wings. And you use them to fly around to different little islands in the sky, similar to how you sail around in Wind Waker, except you're flying around in the sky, I guess. And then there are a few points that you can drop down onto the world below from above the clouds. And these are splintered pieces of the world that you can kind of explore, in each piece. And they have different things to offer in each piece of the world. A unique thing in this game, I think, is that it has this, I believe it was called something like a combat pouch or adventure pouch or something like that. But you have a pouch where you basically put in your items. These are more like secondary items, like bottles of stuff, or a couple of items you can have that'll give you some kind of stat things, like some extra hearts, like additional hearts left on your health bar, and stuff like that. So it's a cool little thing for some character customization. And the thing is, like, you only have so many slots in it, so you can't take all of your stuff. You can only bring so many things with you, so you have to understand, like, okay, what items do I want to bring with me for this given, thing I'm going to try to do. There's also this whole material system for upgrading. Like, you can go and get your items upgraded into more powerful versions of those items through a shop. And you can basically, like you get certain, like, it costs a certain amount of rupees to do it, but also a certain amount of special kinds of materials, which can either be found throughout the different parts of the land, or can be found from defeated enemies, and there are a variety of different materials. You'll need different amounts of different materials to be, doing these upgrades and creating different kinds of potions and all this other kinds of stuff. So it's an interesting little addition, instead of just having it be paying a bunch of rupees. Although there are a lot of things that cost a lot of rupees, so it uses rupees pretty well in this game, where, you can have a lot, but they're going to be going towards something most of the time. So it's not often where you're going to be just sitting on a big, stack of cash and really have nothing to spend it on. I think that's cool that it's kind of more well-paced, something that not a lot of Zelda games really did with the whole rupees thing. But I think the big thing to talk about in this game are the motion controls that are implemented into it. And they are implemented into the game very, very well. unlike Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword actually feels like it's supposed to be a Wii game. The way you move your Wiimote and swing it, swings your sword in the same manner. It matters which way you're swinging it, which means that you have to tackle some enemies in different ways. Some enemies need to be slashed in a certain direction, maybe they need to be stabbed. And it's not just figuring out, when to stab them or, when to hit them, where to hit them. It's also about how to hit them. And I think that's a cool bit that actually adds a pretty interesting layer to the combat. So it's more than just, okay, this is when I'm supposed to hit A to kill them, It's a cool way to make you feel like you're really a little more immersed in it as well. You also use it for a lot of your items. You can roll bombs or you can throw them. If you do like a bowling motion with the Wiimote, you'll roll a bomb, and if you do more of like a, over the shoulder like tossing motion, you'll throw a bomb. And there's some other like items that are used by tilting the Wiimote and just the positioning of it, and the way your cursor still like aiming with the Wiimote as well is still back. So it actually gives you some consequence to your actions rather than just being things that could have just been mapped to buttons. And it feels really organic. It helps not only with the combat, but which I will say it makes for some of the most exciting combat in any of the Zelda games. So if that's your thing, definitely check it out. But it also is integrated into some of the puzzles, where you have to be using these different items and using the tilting. And there are some other challenges where you have to be really good with the motion controls to figure out how to just how to fight, how to move, and how to solve puzzles. And it's just implemented in all the different aspects of the game so well that it just feels like a nice new layer, a nice fresh layer to something that we've seen a lot before. And I think that's probably one of the strongest things the game actually has going for it. But also, I guess I'll mention this quick too. I think that the visuals and the soundtrack are both really good. The visuals are really, really bright and vibrant in this game, and they're actually really pretty. And I think a lot of the environments just actually really stuck out to me. And I think they looked like great. I was like, oh, some of those like forest parts were like, oh man, this is really pretty. And there are some cool, like the orchestrated soundtrack for it is cool. I mean, it's got a nice layer of polish on top of an interesting hook for a Zelda game, and I think that's really nice. And I guess I kind of want to take a moment to talk about the motion controls, though. And here's the thing. You see, there's some stuff that people complain about with this game, I guess. I'm going to just say this for this short section here. Is that there are a couple things that I think people complain about with this game far too much, and I don't necessarily know if they're justified or not. One of the main things is motion controls. And people will say that they hate the motion controls and that they suck. Well, the motion controls are actually really, really good in this game, especially since you're using the Wii Motion Plus, which is, better depth of movement. But also, if it's, a lot of times it will come out of sync. I will admit that. There are times when you're, trying to fight and all of a sudden your sword is way off to the side for some reason, even though you're holding it dead center. But as long as you just hold your remote in the center of the screen and then hit a button, there was actually your recalibration button right there, it'll bring you back to the center of the screen immediately. So you won't really be dying from, that, weird calibration issue. That's not going to be the reason that you lose your game. It might mess you up here or there a little bit, but it's honestly, with the way the game goes, that's not going to be the reason that you lose. It's going to be because you're not doing very well. And I think that, because the controls work so well and they're implemented so interestingly, that I think this argument is kind of bullshit. Except for the fact that if you don't like motion controls, then obviously you're not going to care for the game. And I think that's a little unfair. Like, you can say you don't like motion controls. But if that's the case, I don't think you can judge the game based on not liking the main controls for it, is the thing. because you probably won't be playing very far in it, or you won't be very good because you can't grasp those controls. And I don't think it's necessarily the fault of those controls. For instance, like if I was playing a game on the computer and it used keyboard and mouse controls, but I wanted to use a controller because I like that better. Now I could say the game sucks because it uses keyboard and mouse controls, but I mean that's not fair. The game could be really fun, and just because I don't particularly care for or really fully understand how to use those controls properly, that doesn't mean that those controls are bad, nor does it mean that the game is bad because of it. All it really means is that I don't like those controls, so I don't want to play that game. And I think that's kind of the difference between having a bad game and just you having a bad experience with the game. The other thing that I hear a lot is that people shit on Skyward Sword for doing things that a bunch of other Zelda games do. That it just copies the stuff that all these other Zelda games already did, and they're saying that that's somehow bad. Now, I don't understand that one very much at all, because, every Zelda game since Zelda 2 has been borrowing elements from previous Zelda games. It's because it's a series of games, and most series will borrow things from previous games. They're going to borrow things that worked well, they're going to try to add in new things. Maybe they're going to make some references to other games in the series, and they're going to bring those up throughout each installment. That's usually how a series works. There's a formula there. And it makes sense that Zelda games would play like other Zelda games because they're in the same series. And I think that a lot of this also comes from just a justification standpoint. They want to feel justified for not liking the game. And instead of, just admitting that they don't like the motion controls, which I think is actually the case for most people, is the main problem, I think that a lot of people are just looking for any reason to really bash the game to make themselves feel more justified in not enjoying it. And I don't think that's necessarily fair to do, because if that was the case, you wouldn't like pretty much any Zelda game past the first Legend of Zelda, much less A Link to the Past. I don't really find how that argument fits. As far as actual negative parts, more so in the design, though, admitting that I suppose that if you don't like the repeated things, you won't like most of the Zelda series, and that, yes, if you don't like the motion controls, you probably won't like the game. That is a limiting factor, sure, but that's a limiting factor in any game with a control scheme or a controller type that, you're just not used to. I think more so in the design of the game, though, are things like the way the overworld is set up. There's that whole hub world thing, which has you flying around from island to island and trying to find secrets and stuff out there and get to other parts of the main world. But while it's trying to emulate Wind Waker, it doesn't really do that. At least not effectively, because in Wind Waker, when you would go sailing across this big, vast ocean, there was this really cool, kind of calming music that would play, and you would see the waves going and birds flying by. There would be some encounters now and then, maybe a storm, who knows. It was kind of just about adventuring out, and it was almost kind of a relaxing thing. It was a certain experience. When you're flying through the sky, you have to be constantly at the ready. You can't sit back and just kind of enjoy the ride. You have to constantly be trying to pilot your loft wing. There's more intense music happening while you're flying around. So it's more like trying to get from point A to point B than really enjoying the actual journey to those things, because it's a little more stressful, and I don't think it creates that same kind of atmosphere. That and the fact that I don't really like that this game feels so splintered. It feels like you're going from place to place, and it doesn't really feel like they're connected. It feels like you go from the clouds to a place on the ground, and then back to the clouds to another place on the ground, and it feels very much like you have to go through these different sections. And this would be fine. I guess it's not necessarily bad, but for such a new game, for the year it came out, you'd think they would be kind of past that whole thing. You'd want these worlds to feel more interconnected, kind of like Twilight Princess did. You'd want it to feel like it was actually a connected experience, and that you weren't just going from, hub world to other thing that loaded over here and back to hub world to load other thing over there. And maybe that's just me overthinking it. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it is kind of, I guess it's kind of sad. Um, Also, while I do like the upgrade system that they have in the game, and I think it's interesting for a change, it can be a little annoying to have to go to specific places and try to grind specific materials just to get upgrades for your items. So I guess, I'm a little on the fence on that. I don't think it's great. It can be interesting, sure, but I feel like if you're looking for specific things, it's going to get real grindy and annoying real fast, so I don't know. Still, Skyward Sword as a whole is a really good game, and I think it's one that people shit on way too much, and I don't really understand why. I mean, when it first came out, it got lots of praise, and I'm assuming that's because most Zelda fans got it immediately and were loving this new Zelda game they got to play. But then critics started really digging into it, and so did everyone else. And I guess maybe it was because they just didn't like motion controls, or maybe it was that they were really just sick of playing the same kind of Zelda stuff over and over again, even though somehow it was okay before. I mean, something had to give because people really like to shit on this game, for reasons that are kind of unfounded here. So I guess all I can say is that if you were on the fence about this game and you really don't care that much about motion controls, if you don't care that those are that's the way you control the game, those are the controls for it, then check it out, because this is a great Zelda game that is, maybe not one of the best Zelda games, but it's definitely something worth experiencing, especially for a Zelda fan. It's still a very good game. Even saying that it's a bad Zelda game still doesn't really mean that it's a bad game. So, I mean, just honestly, go and check it out. I know if it's a lot to commit to getting a Wii Motion Plus for that if you don't have it. But trust me, this game is great. If you're a Zelda fan, you should probably enjoy this, because this is like other Zelda games. Why would you not? Unless you're sick of playing Zelda games. And, and I can't imagine that happening, really. I mean, if that's the case, you have much more serious problems than, point and waggles. So, just all I'm saying is give it a shot. It's not as bad as people would make it out to be. That's all I'm saying. And I hope you enjoyed the reviews, even though I didn't have all the details and stuff. But just leave what do you think in the comments. Do you think Skyward Sword is good or bad? Leave that in the comments. Try to explain why, if you could, for me. And if you think it's better or worse than, say, Twilight Princess, I would say it's not as good as Twilight Princess, but it does deserve to be a Wii game. It's much more of a Wii game, I'll give it that. And just, whatever, like, conversation in the comments. Let's have fun. Let's rap, yo, in the... Can we cut that? Yeah, and that's all. And I guess I should stop rambling now, because my voice sounds like I've been talking too much, so I will shut up. And I will see you guys for the rest of Zelda month.